Drew Barrymore holds a place among the most resilient people in Hollywood. With her rise and fall in child stardom, she showed that early pitfalls were easy to shake off. But behind that luminous smile and infectious laughter, dark moments of extreme tragedy and turmoil were buried deep within. Hers is not a common story of glamour across Hollywood. Hers is the most inspirational story amidst widespread odds. Born into the prestigious Barrymore family, Drew was propelled into the limelight almost from birth. Drew's grandfather, John Barrymore, was one of the most highly praised actors of his generation, while her father, John Drew Barrymore, was also an actor, though less successful than his father and more troubled. By the age of 7, Drew had already made a name for herself worldwide with her unforgettable portrayal of Gertie in the sci-fi cult classic film E.T. the Extraterrestrial. The world had fallen in love with this cute little girl who lit up the screen with just a smile. While the cameras captured some of the magic of her early days, they certainly didn't freeze the pain. Drew has spoken candidly about how her childhood was far from ideal in several interviews over the years. The very early onset of fame, combined with her parents' dysfunctional relationship, created a perfect storm. She has gone on record about how her father's erratic behavior and her mother's inability to provide a stable environment left her feeling lost and alone. "I grew up way too fast," she once said in an interview with The Guardian. "It was all happening so fast, and I didn't have the tools to deal with any of it." At 9, Drew began drinking. At 10, she started smoking marijuana, and by 12, she was using cocaine, a trajectory that landed her in rehab at just 13. Subsequent media coverage made her out to be a cautionary tale, the poster child for the perils of child stardom. What most failed to see, though, was how unimaginable pressure and isolation drove her down that dark path. On an episode of The Drew Barrymore Show, Drew, while talking to her guest Brooke Shields, said, "I didn't feel like I had a dog in that race. I didn't feel like I could speak to it because I experienced so many things that were inappropriate at such a young age that I'm so confused about. What was I accountable for? What did I put myself into? Where was I? Was I a part of things? We were children." In so many ways, Drew Barrymore's adolescence is depressing. While most teens are stumbling through the awkwardness of high school, Drew was in and out of rehab facilities, struggling to reclaim her life. Bold enough to emancipate herself from her parents at 14, she took control of her destiny. That was a bold step, one that set her on the road to recovery, not without a few stumbles along the way. But perhaps the most powerful part of Drew's story is that despite all the darkness she's known, she found light on the other side. After all that, she refused to be defined by her past. She rebuilt her career, transitioning from a doubly famous, notorious troubled teen to a successful actress, producer, and entrepreneur. She even started her talk show, sharing her life as she continues to do, much to the delight of her fans with honesty and humor. Of all the child stars who fell victim to the pressures of fame, Drew Barrymore's story stands out as one of human resilience. Having fought more in her lifetime than most people will ever fight, she has emerged graceful, wise, and strong. As Drew once said, "You can't change your past, but you can learn from it and grow." Her journey is a powerful story of hope, no matter how deep the darkness. One can always find light. Early life. Drew Barrymore was born into one of the most iconic, celebrated families in Hollywood, the Barrymores. Her lineage is steeped in the history of American theater and cinema, a legacy that both lit her path and cast long shadows over her life. Understanding Drew Barrymore's early years is key to understanding the immense pressure and expectations that come with being part of such a storied family, as well as the turbulent, at times chaotic environment that shaped her formative years. The Barrymores were an acting dynasty. Her grandfather, John Barrymore, was considered by most critics one of the greatest actors of his generation. Known as the Great Profile, John Barrymore made a career on both stage and screen, with indelible performances in classics such as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde in 20th Century. His brother Lionel and sister Ethel Barrymore were also towering figures in the acting world, earning tributes for their film and stage work. Together, the Barrymores formed what is often referred to as America's first family of theater, a dynasty that set a high standard of accomplishment in the performing arts. Growing up in the shadow of greatness, Drew was born into a world where the lights of Hollywood never went off. Her father, John Drew Barrymore, was also an actor, though his career had been tainted by personal issues such as addiction and erratic behavior. Her mother, Jade Barrymore, an aspiring actress of Hungarian descent, saw her daughter as a way to redeem their family name. From the moment she was born, Drew knew what her future held. She was going to be a star. But that great opportunity did not come without expectations. The Barrymore name was both a blessing and a curse, opening doors to opportunities few others could dream of while placing the weight of a legacy nearly impossible to carry on Drew's young shoulders. Drew's childhood was not the Hollywood fairy tale many might expect. Behind the scenes of glamour lurked a stormy, unstable family life. Her parents were always fighting, and their eventual separation only added to the disarray. Drew has openly commented on the challenges of growing up in such a situation, describing her home life as erratic and unpredictable. Her father's substance abuse and psychiatric problems often made her feel abandoned and neglected. In interviews, she has recalled how he used to disappear for long stretches, which instilled in her a deep sense of loss and disorientation. On the other hand, her mother was very dedicated to developing Drew's career, but increasingly strained their relationship. Jade Barrymore had obvious ambitions for her daughter, but she could not provide the stability and guidance Drew so desperately craved. This blurred the line between mother and manager, leaving Drew without a true parental figure to turn to. This lack of stability would affect her emotional well-being for years to come. By the time Drew was 7, she had already starred in a dog food commercial and played her first feature film role in Altered States. But it was her role as Gertie in Steven Spielberg's E.T. the Extraterrestrial that catapulted her to worldwide fame. Suddenly, Drew was a household name, beloved everywhere for her endearing performance. However, behind the scenes, few knew the extent of her inner turmoil. The pressures of fame, combined with her unstable family life, proved nearly too much for Drew to handle. A young girl who should have been out playing with her friends and enjoying the innocence of childhood was instead dealing with adult issues. Her expectations were enormous, and her turn to alcohol, drugs, and rebellion came as no surprise, a sign of deep hurt and confusion. The legacy of the Barrymore family loomed large as Drew navigated the complications of her early life. Her last name, combined with her troubled childhood, created a perfect storm that would shape her journey for years to come. Even in her darkest moments, Drew's resilience began to surface, a resilience that would later become one of her defining characteristics. Career and rise to fame. When Drew Barrymore landed her part in E.T. the Extraterrestrial, she was only 7 years old. No one could have expected that her role would launch her to such colossal levels of fame. Directed by Steven Spielberg, E.T. was the face of the 1980s, winning hearts worldwide with its tale of friendship between a boy and his alien companion. The movie defined everything up to that point in Drew's career, but also set her on a bumpy ride through the highs and lows of Tinseltown. Playing Gertie in E.T., Drew portrayed the prickly, adorable younger sister of the film's protagonist, Elliot. There's no other word to describe her performance, but captivating for someone so young. Drew captured the natural charm and authenticity behind the role, making Gertie a memorable character. She connected with both adults and children alike, delivering her lines with wide-eyed innocence and honest emotion. E.T.'s heartwarming scenes featured dialogues that highlighted Drew Barrymore's great talent for understanding her character and emotionally connecting with the audience. The movie was a blockbuster. E.T. the Extraterrestrial was a worldwide sensation everywhere, a phenomenon. It became the most critically and commercially successful film of 1982. Drew was one of the leading lights in the cast and became one of the most famous people in the world. She was now a household name, recognizable on virtually every street corner, whether her image appeared on a movie marquee or a television talk show. In the words of writer Fleshman, to a person so young, the sudden fame brought with it a whirlwind of media attention and public adoration, both exhilarating and terrifying. With all the success that came as a result of E.T., doors were opening for Drew in the film industry, but they came with crippling pressures. Any pressure fame imposes on a person is hard to handle, but for a child it can be highly destabilizing. Drew found herself suddenly in the public eye, with every move of hers under a magnifying lens. To the rest of the world, she was the adorable Gertie, But living as Drew Barrymore was much more challenging. Early fame impacted Drew's childhood in profound ways. She was thrust into an adult world with enormous expectations and pressures. Everything normal for most children, playing with friends, attending school, growing up, was out of reach for Drew. Her life revolved around red carpet events, interviews, and movie sets. With little time left for a normal childhood, early plunges into the adult world isolated and made her vulnerable in Hollywood. Drew has described in interviews how hard it was for her to reconcile her public image with the reality of her life, which was far from the fairy tale the public loved. "I was just a little girl," she once reflected, "and suddenly, everyone knew my name. Everyone had an opinion about me, and I felt like I had to be perfect all the time." The need to live up to public expectations, coupled with the lack of a stable home environment, created a deep inner loneliness. As time went on, the impact of that early fame became evident. Drew's childhood had been traded for fleeting Hollywood success, and eventually, the facades began to crack. The bright lights of fame cast a long shadow over her youth, one that she would struggle to escape for years to come. Personal struggles. Much of Drew Barrymore's early life was an oxymoron, a world of glitz and glamour from Hollywood fame, interwoven with deep personal turmoil. Born into the renowned Barrymore acting family, Drew was immersed in a world of talent, respectability, and public adoration from an early age. However, beneath the glitter of this charmed life lay a darker reality of insecurity, addiction, and emotional neglect that would shape her future in unimaginable ways. At the root of her early struggles were deep issues within her family, particularly with her parents, John Drew Barrymore and Jade Barrymore. John Drew Barrymore had been a talented young actor consumed by the very demons of addiction that destroyed his career and personal life. He was a man of vast talent and vast pain, a figure Drew has described as a mad, poetic soul. His erratic behavior and violent tantrums, fueled by addiction, turned Drew's childhood into a whirlwind. Drew has reflected on how her father's unpredictability made her childhood an emotional roller coaster, filled with devastating lows and soaring highs. He was absent both physically and emotionally, leaving Drew without the stability and security every child needs. Jade Barrymore, Drew's mother, was no exception to the family's problems. Though she tried to manage Drew's growing career, Jade's priorities were often skewed. Her interests lay in the superficial glory of fame rather than providing the tender care her daughter needed. To Drew, Jade was more of a buddy than a mother, a situation Drew would later lament. This tangled parent-buddy dynamic forced Drew to confront adult situations long before she was ready. Parties, overnight bashes, and a fast-paced Hollywood social life became normal for Drew, who was treated like an equal by the adults rather than being cared for like a child. The absence of parental guidance left Drew feeling emotionally and physically unprotected. She had to meet the challenges of fame and public life pressures head-on, without the support of a stable home. In her interviews, Drew has reflected on how the lack of a conventional family structure hit her hard and made her feel alone and unprotected during her formative years. "My parents weren't parents," she has said on multiple occasions. "They were more like friends." These statements embodied the sense of loneliness and confusion that characterized her childhood, a period that should have been filled with carefree fun, but was instead plagued by responsibilities and the consequences of her parents' lives and actions. As Drew's career reached new heights, so did the pressures of being one of the most recognizable child stars in the industry. The adoration of millions did little to compensate for the emptiness caused by her lack of a serene family background. Desperate for relief from the stresses of celebrity life and emotional turmoil at home, Drew turned to substances at a dangerously young age. By the age of 9, Drew was already drinking alcohol at many of the parties her mother took her to. These parties, filled with Hollywood's elite, were no place for a child. Yet there Drew would be, treated like an equal by the adults rather than cared for like a child. Alcohol provided a temporary escape from stress and loneliness, but it also pushed Drew down a dangerous path. By the time she was 10, she was smoking marijuana. By 12, she was using cocaine, a rapid descent into substance abuse that startled those around her but seemed almost inevitable given her circumstances. Drew was left on her own to navigate these dangerous waters with little supervision or guidance from her parents. The Hollywood environment that had once embraced her charisma and talent became oblivious to the damage being caused to this young soul. The burden of keeping up appearances, the expectations placed upon her, and the inner turmoil she was suffering became too much for Drew to bear. She was thrust into a world that demanded she act like an adult, but she was still a child trying to cope with enormous challenges. In later interviews, Drew has candidly discussed this time in her life, explaining how things seemed to spiral out of control. "I was so young, and it was just too much. Too soon," she admits. "I didn't know how to deal with it, so I turned to anything that could make me feel good for a minute." Her words reflect the desperation and confusion of being so young, a life characterized by the pressures of fame, compounded by the absence of a nurturing family, had set her on a course of self-destruction. Drew Barrymore's early life is a tragic reminder of the dark side of child stardom. All the bright lights and adoring fans only masked a little girl who was lost, alone, and fighting to find her way in a world that demanded far too much from her far too early. The trials she faced at a young age left deep scars, but also set the stage for the remarkable resilience and strength she would come to embody later in life. The overwhelming burden of Drew's challenges reached a devastating peak when, at just 14, she attempted to take her own life. The act itself was an expression of the depth of her despair and the acute isolation that had wrapped itself around her, despite her fame. Reflecting on that dark period, Drew, in an episode of The Drew Barrymore Show, while speaking to Madison Beer, said, "Her words reveal the hopelessness that had consumed her, highlighting how lost and isolated she had become. This event served as a wake-up call to everyone around her, though meaningful help would take some time to arrive." After her suicide attempt, Drew was committed to a mental health institution where she began the long and painful process of recovery. The structure and therapy she received were integral to helping her begin to deal with the deep traumas of her childhood and the addictions that had taken over her life. During her time at the institution, Drew made a bold decision. At 15, she legally emancipated herself from her mother, Jade Barrymore. This courageous move gave her control over her own life and marked the beginning of a new chapter. It was a defining moment when Drew began to rebuild her life on her own terms, refashioning herself toward healing and independence, a path that would shape her future. Battle with addiction and recovery. Drew Barrymore's struggles with addiction began very early. By the age of 13, her life was already mired in substance abuse, prompting her first stint in rehab. During this early period of rehabilitation, she became proactive about addressing her addiction. It was also an intensely reflective time for Drew at such a young age. This experience was both daunting and revelatory. The rehab environment made Drew realize how bad things had gotten and how her troubled childhood had contributed to her addiction. It was a harsh awakening to the fact that her addiction was more than a personal failing. It was a symptom of deeper emotional and psychological issues. Even with this early intervention, Drew's road to recovery was anything but linear. Her teenage years were marked by a constant battle with addiction, with multiple rehab stays that did little to prevent frequent relapses. With each attempt to overcome her addiction, new challenges arose. It wasn't just a matter of fighting the physical addiction, but of confronting the psychological scars left by her tumultuous childhood and the pressures of early fame. Each relapse revealed just how deep a hold addiction had on her and how difficult it was to start over. Throughout her journey, Drew has spoken candidly in interviews about the raw honesty of her struggles, which resonate with many people. In a 2017 interview with Chelsea on Netflix, she described her journey to sobriety as the hardest thing I've ever done to battle. Was not just physical but also emotional and mental, requiring an immense amount of discipline and perseverance. Drew's reflections reveal the personal growth needed to win this struggle. Her frankness about her past illustrates the endurance and strength required to take the long road to recovery, transforming a story of desperation into one of hope and resilience. Taking control. At the age of 14, Drew Barrymore made a radical decision that would set her life in motion. She emancipated herself from her parents. After years of addiction and family turmoil, this move was far more than a legal formality. It was a brave step toward regaining control of her life. This decision was rooted in Drew's need to escape the instability and dysfunction that had defined her childhood. Her parents were consumed by their own personal problems and could not provide her with the support she needed. By seeking emancipation, Drew distanced herself from this chaotic life and took control of her destiny. This legal process granted her the right to make decisions about her career, finances, and personal life without parental intervention. However, freedom came with its own challenges. Now legally an adult at barely 15, Drew faced overwhelming responsibilities that most people her age would never encounter. She had to manage her career, make critical decisions about her roles and public image, and navigate financial independence, all under the intense scrutiny of the public eye. For someone so young, the burden of adulthood was immense. Drew had to balance a professional career with the personal issues she continued to struggle with. She grappled with the harsh realities of financial independence, the need for self-discipline, and the isolation that came with her new status. But Drew's determination and resilience in the face of these odds made for a compelling narrative. Her strength and drive to free herself from the dysfunction of her past marked the true beginning of her journey toward personal growth and professional growth. Resurgence and career rebirth. Drew Barrymore's battle was to rebuild her acting career, and she ultimately emerged even stronger. After overcoming her self-destructive adolescence, Drew began the long process of reinventing herself as a respectable and successful actress. It was not an overnight transformation, nor was it easy. But Drew's unwavering spirit and talent led her out of the darkness and back into the limelight. Major projects that marked her comeback included roles in films like Boys on the Side and Batman Forever, which showcased her versatility and determination. The defining moment, however, came with her role in the 1996 horror film Scream, directed by Wes Craven. Drew's credibility in playing diverse roles earned her a new audience, expanding her fan base. She went on to star in the iconic Charlie's Angels 2000 and its sequel, Charlie's Angels Full Throttle 2003, both of which she also produced under her production company, Flower Films. These films cemented Drew's status as a leading lady with dynamic range. Beyond her acting success, Drew's entrepreneurial spirit emerged through her work with Flower Films, allowing her to produce and star in projects she was passionate about. Her acting ability and business acumen helped secure her comeback, transforming her into an entertainment powerhouse. Self-discovery. One of the most inspiring aspects of Drew Barrymore's life story has been her journey towards sobriety and self-discovery. After years of addiction and personal struggles, Drew took the long and difficult path of changing her life. Her battle with substance abuse, which began in her early teenage years, threatened to overshadow a promising career in life. Yet Drew's determination to confront her issues head-on marked the beginning of a profound transformation. In candid interviews, Drew has spoken about how painful yet rewarding her journey toward sobriety has been. Overcoming her addiction required more than just a physical battle. It involved revisiting the emotional and psychological wounds of her past. Through countless rehab stints and therapy sessions, she began to unravel the layers of her trauma, learning to confront and heal from the pain that had shaped her life. Drew's self-discovery involved a process of redefining her identity and values away from the public eye, focusing on self-esteem and healthier coping mechanisms. She also embraced mindfulness and personal growth on her journey toward inner peace. Drew has been open about the importance of finding balance and prioritizing mental health. Many of these lessons she has shared in interviews and public appearances. This period of deep personal growth gave Drew a stronger relationship with herself and a clearer sense of direction in life. It was during this time that she developed the resilience and perseverance that would serve as the foundation for her future success. Present life and influence. Today, Drew Barrymore exemplifies reinvention on both a personal and professional level. Her career is thriving, and she is committed to pursuing creative projects. In addition to acting, Drew has won over audiences as the host of The Drew Barrymore Show, which is filled with energy, honesty, and relatability. Beyond her talk show, she continues to produce and direct through Flower Films, working on film and TV projects that align with her evolving creative vision. Drew also extends her influence into the world of lifestyle and wellness, with successful ventures like her beauty line, Flower Beauty, which reflects her passion for accessible and empowering self-care products. Drew Barrymore is an inspiration, not just for her career achievements, but for her resilience and advocacy. She has been a vocal advocate for mental health, addiction recovery, and self-empowerment. Through her platform, she has raised awareness and offered support to those struggling by sharing her journey and encouraging others to be their authentic selves. Drew has inspired positive change and continues to serve as a role model for overcoming adversity and finding personal strength. Conclusion. Drew Barrymore's story from troubled child star to resilient and powerful woman is one of profound transformation. From her early battles with fame and addiction to her journey towards sobriety and self-discovery, Drew has shown unwavering determination in the face of incredible challenges. Her story is not just about surviving the troubled path of child stardom, but about thriving because of it. Through personal battles and professional setbacks, Drew has emerged as a bold and powerful force in the entertainment industry, continuing to take on new opportunities and empowering others along the way. Drew Barrymore's life is a testament to the fact that there is always light at the end of even the darkest tunnel. Her story underscores the truth that, while adversity may be overwhelming, it also carries the potential for great personal growth and transformation. Drew's journey teaches us that it's not about avoiding struggles, but about standing up to them with courage and emerging stronger on the other side. Just as her accomplishments and advocacy work demonstrate, with determination and self-compassion, we can rise above even the greatest of challenges.